If you thought Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was already insufferable, just wait until you see how she's reacting to a potential DOJ criminal referral. For years, we've watched AOC demand justice against her political opponents. She celebrated indictments, investigations, and government crackdowns as long as they were aimed at conservatives. But now, the script has flipped. The moment she finds herself under scrutiny, she's suddenly the helpless victim of a corrupt system.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
So, what's actually happening? AOC is being accused of actively assisting illegal immigrants in evading ICE detention. That's a serious charge, something that under normal circumstances could lead to legal consequences. But instead of addressing the issue head-on, she's twisting the narrative, claiming this is an attack on her First Amendment rights. That's right, AOC, who pushed for censoring conservatives, is suddenly using the Constitution as her shield. But now, the stakes are even higher. Reports suggest that Attorney General Pam Bondi is reportedly preparing to charge AOC for allegedly helping illegal immigrants evade ICE. Yeah, you heard that right. And let's be real, are we even surprised? This is the same crowd that screams about no one being above the law when it comes to their political opponents, but suddenly plays dumb when their own side gets caught. They push open borders, fight to defund ICE, and want political opponents to have no Secret Service protection while running for office. The real question is, will there actually be accountability? Or will the media and the Democrats protect AOC just like they do every time one of their own gets caught? And of course, she's already playing the victim. To hear her tell it, this DOJ referral isn't about her potentially breaking federal law. It's just another right-wing hit job. This is the playbook every time when they go after their opponents. It's justice. But when the spotlight turns on them, it's suddenly a witch hunt. So let's break it all down. What exactly did AOC do? Could she actually face consequences? And why do left-wing politicians always think the law doesn't apply to them? Let's get into it. AOC has always used immigration as a political prop, but not a cause she actually cares about. Every time she talks about border policy, it's not about real solutions or enforcing the law. It's about virtue signaling and making herself look like the self-appointed savior of illegal immigrants.
You've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing webinars to explain to illegal immigrants how to evade ICE arrests. And then she tweeted out after something you said maybe she's going to be in trouble now. And she says maybe he can learn to read the Constitution would be a good place to start. She's continuing her resist efforts against your efforts, Tom.
Look, I forgot more about the Constitution, immigration enforcement as you ever know. I mean, I had to educate her during congressional testimony that entering the country illegally is a crime.
Think about it. Her entire brand is built around performative activism. She doesn't actually tackle immigration reform in a meaningful way. She just finds emotional moments to exploit for the cameras. And if you need proof, just flash back to her infamous border photo op. You know the one, the viral images of AOC dressed in all white, dramatically crying at a detention center. The media ate it up, portraying her as heartbroken over the suffering of migrants. But then, the full pictures surfaced, and it turned out she wasn't crying at detained children. She was standing in front of an empty parking lot. That right there tells you everything you need to know about how AOC operates. It's all about theatrics, not results, and now her immigration advocacy has reportedly escalated from empty virtue signaling to actively obstructing federal law. If the allegations are true, she's not just talking about immigration issues, she's actually helping illegal immigrants avoid ICE enforcement. That goes beyond political grandstanding. That's direct interference with law enforcement. Now, let's be honest. If an average person helps someone evade ICE, they'd be arrested on the spot. Regular people don't get to pick and choose which laws they obey. But AOC? She acts like she's untouchable. The same leftists who call for the prosecution of anyone who disagrees with them suddenly have no problem with someone interfering in immigration enforcement as long as that person is one of their own. And how is this really any different from sanctuary city officials defying federal immigration laws? Spoiler, it's not. The left constantly complains about attacks on democracy, yet they have no issue openly defying federal authority when it suits them. They push policies that directly undermine national security, all while pretending to be the moral heroes of the story. So here we are again. AOC is treating immigration not as a serious issue, but as a personal PR campaign. She's done it before, and she's doing it again. But this time, she might actually face consequences. And judging by her hysterical reaction, she's realizing that playing the victim might not get her out of this one. Let's get straight to the facts. AOC might have finally crossed a legal line even her media cheerleaders can't protect her from. Reports are circulating that she may have actively assisted individuals in evading ICE enforcement, which, in case she needs a refresher, is a federal crime. Now, let's be clear, this isn't just about giving a passionate speech or advocating for immigration reform. If the allegations are true, AOC didn't just talk about opposing ICE, she actively helped people avoid law enforcement. That is obstruction of justice. Think about it. Imagine a Republican congressman doing the same thing. Picture a GOP lawmaker tipping off individuals under federal investigation, helping them avoid arrest. The outrage would be instant. The media would be in full meltdown mode. Protests would erupt overnight, and we'd be hearing nonstop calls for impeachment, prosecution, and public shaming. But when AOC and the radical left do it, suddenly it's not a crime, it's compassion. That's the game they play. They don't believe in law and order. They believe in power and narrative control. If it benefits their agenda, it's righteous and necessary. If it threatens their grip on power, it's an attack on democracy. But here's the real kicker. This could actually lead to legal trouble. AOC isn't just dealing with Twitter backlash. She might be looking at a real DOJ investigation, and judging by her hysterical reaction, she knows it. She isn't brushing this off. She isn't laughing it away. She's panicking. We've seen it before. The left loves accountability until it lands at their doorstep. And now, AOC is scrambling to play the victim. But the truth is, she's not a martyr. She's not being persecuted. If these allegations hold up, she broke the law, and no amount of virtue signaling should get her off the hook. So the question is, will she actually be held accountable? Or will this be another case of a left-wing politician getting away with what would destroy anyone else's career? Time will tell. But one thing's for sure, AOC's meltdown is proof that for the first time in a long time, she's actually afraid of the consequence. Now, here's where things get downright hilarious. Suddenly, AOC is a constitutional scholar. That's right, the same woman who has spent years pushing for government censorship is now clutching the First Amendment like it's her personal get-out-of-jail-free card. She's arguing that this DOJ referral violates her First Amendment rights. Wait a second, wasn't she just a few months ago demanding that conservative voices be silenced? Wasn't she the one calling for government intervention against so-called dangerous rhetoric? Let's take a quick trip down memory lane. AOC has been one of the loudest voices advocating for censorship under the guise of combating misinformation. She's repeatedly called for social media companies to remove political content she disagrees with, and even suggested holding people legally accountable for spreading false information. She cheered on tech giants for banning conservatives, pushed for stricter speech regulations, and even tried to pressure Congress into taking action against platforms that allow open debate. But now that she's in trouble, suddenly the First Amendment is her best friend. Now she's acting like a martyr for free speech, pretending that this investigation is some kind of government overreach. The hypocrisy is mind-blowing. This is textbook leftist behavior. They love weaponizing the government against their opponents, but the second that power is turned against them, they're suddenly constitutional purists. The rules are different when they're the ones being held accountable. If this wasn't so predictable, it might actually be entertaining. But at the end of the day, AOC doesn't care about free speech. She doesn't care about the First Amendment. She cares about protecting herself. And now that she's backed into a corner, she's using the very Constitution she's tried to dismantle as a shield. But here's the problem. She's not a victim. If she broke the law, she should be held accountable just like anyone else. No amount of fake constitutional outrage is going to change that. It's almost comical how quickly AOC's attitude shifts when the government's power is being used against her. When Trump was under investigation, she cheered. When conservatives were censored, she called it accountability. When Biden's DOJ weaponized the legal system against political opponents, she didn't just stay silent, she justified it. But the second she's the one under scrutiny, suddenly it's an attack on democracy. Let's rewind a bit. When the FBI raided Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago, AOC didn't waste a second celebrating it. She was all over social media talking about how no one is above the law and how this was justice in action. But now that the DOJ might actually be investigating her, now she's suddenly against politically motivated investigations. Funny how that works. And let's not forget her stance on censorship. When conservatives were deplatformed for having the wrong opinions, AOC gleefully labeled it accountability. She mocked right-wing figures who were banned from social media, insisting that freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. But now that she's the one facing real-world consequences, she's crying about First Amendment rights. The hypocrisy is off the charts. And what about Biden's DOJ targeting his political rivals? We've watched them go after Trump, parents at school board meetings, conservative activists, and whistleblowers, and AOC has had absolutely nothing to say about it. Not a word. She was perfectly fine with the government going after everyday Americans as long as it served her political agenda. But now, she's in a full-blown meltdown because for once, she's the one feeling the heat. This is classic leftist behavior. They love wielding power when it benefits them, but the second it boomerangs back in their direction, they start screaming about tyranny and injustice. They don't care about fairness, they care about control. AOC's reaction to this DOJ referral isn't just hypocritical, it's proof of how the left operates. When the system works for them, it's just and fair. When it doesn't, it's corrupt and oppressive. So which is it, AOC? Is the law supposed to apply to everyone, or just your enemies? Because from where we're standing, it looks like you only care about accountability when it's convenient for you. And that's why nobody's buying this act. AOC's meltdown over this DOJ referral is just the latest example of something we've seen time and time again. The left's complete refusal to take responsibility for anything. No matter what happens, it's never their fault. There's always some grand conspiracy at play, some evil right-wing boogeyman out to get them. If AOC actually broke the law, she should face the consequences just like anyone else. But instead of owning up to it, she's already spinning this as political persecution. The same woman who has celebrated investigations into her opponents is now sobbing on social media about being unfairly targeted. The second they face real accountability, they flip the script. Suddenly, they're the victims. This is the left's entire playbook. They wield power recklessly, they break rules, they smear their opponents, but when the heat gets turned up, they run and hide behind the victim card. AOC isn't a martyr. She's not being targeted. She's just finally being held to the same standard as everyone else. So no, AOC, this isn't some grand injustice. It's called accountability. Maybe for once, you should try accepting it. AOC's reaction to this DOJ referral proves yet again that she's nothing more than a performative fraud. She built her entire brand on fake outrage, self-righteous lectures, and demanding accountability for everyone but herself. But now that she's the one in the hot seat, she's trying to rebrand herself as a martyr for justice. Let's be real, if you or I did what she's accused of, we'd be in jail. No media spin, no political protection, just immediate consequences. But because it's AOC, we're expected to believe she's some innocent victim of a corrupt system. The left loves playing the victim when it's convenient, but they never apply those same standards to their political enemies. The hypocrisy couldn't be more obvious. So what do you think? Is AOC finally about to face real consequences? Or will she weasel her way out of this like every other elite who thinks they're above the law? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe. More content exposing leftist hypocrisy is coming your way soon.